My name was Ahmed. I was an Imam, a pillar of faith in my community, revered and respected. To many, my life seemed perfect. I led prayers, taught the Quran, and embodied the very essence of devotion in a society clutching closely to its traditions. But as I cloaked myself in this facade, a void crept within me. A disconnect grew, tearing at the edges of my soul during every prayer, each moment of silence echoing with unclaimed questions. And then, on a night when the darkness felt heavier than ever, everything changed. In a vivid dream that felt more real than the world I knew, I found myself lost in an endless desert. It was there, amidst the shadows of uncertainty, that I met him, Jesus. He called my name with a voice that shattered my doubt and illuminated truths obscured by years of dogma. In his presence, a brilliant light dispelled my deepest fears, unveiling a spiritual battle I had been blind to, a war raging within, cloaked by the very faith I had held dear. What was this lighting of the soul, this awakening? I was shown a reality that extended beyond the confines of my religion, a revelation that stirred something profound within me. I returned changed, but my truth became a dangerous burden. Sharing it would mean risking everything: rejection, condemnation. I felt the weight of isolation, yet an unquenchable thirst for freedom pushed me forward, a call to uncover and embrace the hidden truths that had evaded my heart. As I embarked on this perilous quest for truth, I encountered others like me, souls awakened from their slumber, yearning for the same light. They understood the allure of the liberating love that I had tasted and the price it exacted. The very fabric of my community began to unravel, a pulling away from the known and a push toward the uncertain, a clash of worlds that ignited a new resolve within me. Here I was, an Imam, entrusted with the knowledge of the divine, and yet my community remained largely in the dark, shackled by ignorance and tradition. Jesus continued, unraveling deeper truths about freedom and salvation, urging me to recognize that understanding and compassion must replace the rigid dogmas that had confined my community. You must help others see beyond the illusion, he urged. Many are lost in confusion, caught in the deceptive narratives designed to keep them from the truth. His words ignited a fire within me, compelling me to rise against the tide of apathy. I realized that it was no longer enough for me to be a mere custodian of tradition, reciting prayers without passion. I was being called to something greater, to become a beacon of hope in a world rife with despair. As I stood in the presence of Jesus, surrounded by the vastness of the desert, I felt both a weighty responsibility and an overwhelming sense of clarity. I understood that my purpose was to guide others toward the light of truth, to lead them out of the shadows cast by societal expectations and manipulation. Yet as the dream began to fade, a sense of urgency pulsed within me, urging me to take immediate action. I could not allow this revelation to slip away into memory. I had to grasp it firmly and let it drive my every decision moving forward. The realization gripped me. The spiritual war was real, and the time was now to awaken the slumbering souls around me. But the obstacles loomed large. My mind raced with thoughts of the repercussions I might face. How would my community react if I challenged the status quo? Would I be met with hostility, with fear, or worse? The fear of rejection nipped at my heels as I grappled with the enormity of the task ahead. Despite this fear, the call to action felt undeniable, an insistent pull urging me to step into my role as a warrior of truth. The journey had only just begun, and as I contemplated the steps I needed to take, the air thickened with anticipation. I could feel the waves of awakening ripple through the fabric of my soul, ready to set forth into the world transformed by the encounter I had just experienced. In the days following my dream with Jesus, I felt a seismic shift within me. The encounter had pulled back the curtain on my soul, revealing truths I could no longer ignore. As an Imam, I had dedicated my life to guiding others in faith, but now I grappled with a crisis that transformed everything I believed. With the weight of revelation pressing on my heart, I knew I had to share my experience with my family and community. They needed to understand what I had seen in that dream, the hidden agenda that manipulates our lives, the spiritual war that rages around us, and the urgent call to awaken to the truth. With trepidation, I approached my family first, gathering them in the modest living room we shared. I could feel the heaviness in the air as I recounted my dream, the warmth of Jesus, and the profound insights he had bestowed upon me. But, as the words left my lips, I was met with puzzled expressions, swiftly followed by frowns of disapproval. Their faces transformed from concern to accusation as they denounced my claims. "How could you say such things?" my father thundered, disappointment etched into every line of his face. "You're questioning the very faith that binds our family. This is heresy!" Each word felt like a dagger to my heart, deepening the fissures of doubt and guilt that had begun to form. As the conversation escalated, I felt increasingly isolated, trapped between the truths I had come to embrace and the fear of losing those I loved most. The accusations weighed heavily on me. How could I claim to be faithful while simultaneously challenging the traditions that defined our lives? In their eyes, I had become a traitor, someone who dared to question the established order. The guilt that enveloped me was crushing, yet I couldn't dismiss the urgent reality of the spiritual awakening that had taken root within me. I wanted to cry out, to shake them awake to the deception I had witnessed, but all I received was scorn and rejection. Returning to the mosque felt like stepping into enemy territory. The very pillars of my faith now reminded me of my isolation, echoing with a deafening silence that met my questions. I tried confiding in fellow imams, hoping for understanding, but their reactions mirrored my family's. I was dismissed as a strayed soul caught in a web of confusion. I saw their steadfast faith. They were unwilling to hear anything that threatened the status quo. The tension built to an unbearable height, and I found myself surrounded by a community occluded in ignorance. I felt the stakes rising ever higher, the urgency of the truth pressing against me like an invisible weight, compelling me to act, yet fearful of the judgment that would surely follow. This internal struggle tore at my very essence, a battle between my desire to remain connected with my community and the burgeoning need to honor the truth I had encountered. My nights were filled with turmoil, the weight of purpose clashing with the urgency of fear. Each time I closed my eyes, I was pulled back into that luminous desert, where the love of Jesus beckoned me to speak out. That call continued to echo in my soul, pointed and insistent, reminding me that my journey of awakening demanded action. I began to realize this was a turning point. It was time to stand up in the face of adversity, not only for myself but for everyone who was still trapped in the shadows of deception. In solitude, I sought solace and guidance through prayer, longing for clarity amidst the chaos. The images of the dream kept replaying in my mind, the urgency palpable. The spiritual war we face is not death. It's the fate of our very souls that hang in the balance. With each passing moment, my fear began to wane and was replaced by a dawning resolve. I understood I could not retreat into silence. I had to forge a new path. I needed to gather those willing to join me in this fight against ignorance, and awaken others to the profound truths shared with me. As I prepared to embark on this mission, I could feel the air crackle with anticipation, the first stirrings of hope igniting in the depths of despair. The struggle ahead would be daunting, but deep down, an awakening was unfolding, and I was determined to lead the way into the light. Secretly, I embarked on a journey toward truth, one that felt utterly necessary, yet clandestine. In the quiet hours after my family went to sleep, I began to delve into the Bible, a book I had only glimpsed from afar, cloaked in the shadows of my own faith. Each page turned was a revelation, igniting a flame of curiosity that had long been dormant within me. With every verse, I felt an unshackling occur, as if layers of deception had been peeled away to reveal deeper insights into the faith I had thought I understood. I was drawn in by the stories of Jesus, the unparalleled love he exemplified, and the truth he proclaimed that seemed to cut through the noise of our world. As I read, I sought out testimonies from converted Christians, individuals who had also traversed the rocky terrain I now found myself navigating. Their stories mirrored my own, a shared experience of awakening that transcended cultural boundaries. I watched their faces light up as they recounted their journeys from doubt to faith, from darkness into the light. These testimonies resonated deeply, and I could feel a sense of camaraderie forming among us, even through the screen. They were no longer just strangers. They were fellow pilgrims on a path toward liberation from the hidden agendas perpetuated by the elite, who manipulate society for their own gain. Yet, as my connection to this new understanding grew, so too did the tension within me. I felt torn. The pull of my cultural roots and the desire to embrace this newfound truth clashed within my soul. The fear of severing ties with my community haunted me. What would my family say if they knew I was questioning our beliefs? What would happen if they learned I was drawn toward a faith that might label me a heretic? Each interaction at the mosque became a reminder of the invisible chains I felt binding me to my upbringing. Yet within the struggle lay the profound realization that my awakening demanded courage, an unyielding will to confront the deception that held so many captive. I began engaging with a supportive community of believers, secret gatherings held away from the judgmental eyes of my peers. In those circles I found solace and strength. We shared our doubts and fears, our hopes and revelations, creating a vibrant tapestry of faith woven from diverse experiences. Their stories of transformation and liberation fueled my own journey, and as I listened to them speak, I felt emboldened by the truth we all sought. The spiritual war we faced was real, and I recognized the power in our unity, a collective awakening that had the potential to break chains and challenge the societal norms that kept us silenced. In those moments, I understood that my journey was no longer merely about my personal awakening, but part of a larger mission to expose the deeper truths that lay hidden in our world. The revelations of deception I had witnessed compelled me to share with others what I had learned about the manipulation that fuels division and fear. I felt the urgency to lead my brothers and sisters toward the light, knowing that the path to truth would inevitably bring challenges. But the thought of others awakening from their slumber exhilarated me, and with newfound hunger, I prepared to step boldly into the unknown, determined to confront the internal and external battles ahead, ready to declare the truth, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of my revelation, I couldn't shake the overwhelming sense that my experience was meant to be shared. A divine purpose had unfurled before my eyes, urging me to step out of the shadow cast by silence and to embrace the responsibility that came with knowledge. I felt a fire within me, a yearning to communicate the truths I had witnessed, despite the looming risks of rejection and backlash from those entrenched in our traditions. The spiritual war won had glimpsed demanded action, and I realized that remaining silent would be a betrayal to the love and awakening Jesus had shown me. With the memory of his light still fresh in my mind, I began to strategize how to convey my insights to my family and community. I knew I had to tread carefully. The stakes were incredibly high. I pictured their faces, their scorn and suspicion were palpable. Yet the urgency within me was more powerful than my fear. Each day, I felt the loud clash of my heart and head. My longing to share was met with the chilling reality of potential ostracism. But the truth was relentless, and as the days passed, the burden of keeping it hidden became unbearable. I started small, gathering a few trusted friends who I believed might be willing to listen. In clandestine meetings held away from prying eyes, I recounted my dream. The warmth of Jesus, the revelation of the hidden agendas that manipulate our lives, and the urgent call to awaken. As I spoke, I watched their reactions closely. The expressions on their faces, curiosity, skepticism, even fear, reflected the conflict I felt within. Yet there was also a spark of hope growing among them. Some began to share their own doubts, their own questions about faith that had long been buried. It was a small but significant step toward the awakening I felt compelled to ignite. As I continued to meet with them, the tension increased. I was caught between the joy of sharing this new understanding and the fear of the consequences that awaited me should the wrong ears hear our conversations. I felt an almost palpable pressure in the air, a reminder of the spiritual war being fought on both sides. The world outside our discussions remained shrouded in deception, but within our small group, a light began to flicker as we explored the truths that had been hidden from us. We found strength in vulnerability, reveling in the shared desire to awaken and transcend the barriers that had previously held us captive. But the path was by no means without danger. Each new revelation I shared felt like a risk. The fear of backlash loomed in the shadows, threatening to extinguish the fire we were kindling. I often found myself reflecting on my family and how they would respond to my transformation. Would they reject me outright? Or could they embrace the truth I had come to cherish? The deep roots of my cultural identity intertwined with my faith created knots of fear and yearning within me. I knew this would not only affect my life, but could ripple through our community, challenging long-standing beliefs and traditions. Facing these internal struggles compelled me to push forward. A revolution of thought could be sparked if enough hearts opened to the truth I had encountered. The fear was real, but the potential for awakening was greater. As I prepared for the next steps, from sharing more widely within my community to potentially confronting the elite forces that bind us in deception, I felt the tension crackling in the air. The urgency to raise my voice against this spiritual war became undeniable. I was ready to embrace my role in the fight for truth, hoping that my journey would resonate broadly and inspire others to seek their own awakening. The world felt charged with possibilities, and despite the fear, I was determined to stand firm in the light of the revelation that had transformed my life. In a bold act of courage, I made the decision to leave my old life behind. This wasn't just a change of address, it was a complete transformation, a rebirth into a new identity as I stepped into the unknown in search of spiritual freedom. Ahmed had served me well as an Imam, a name tied to my role in the community, but I sensed that I needed to shed that skin. The revelation from Jesus had illuminated the hidden truths I had long overlooked, compelling me to embrace a new name, a symbol of my awakening. Each step I took away from my past felt like a plunge into a vast ocean, swirling with uncertainty but buoyed by hope for discovery. I embarked on this journey armed with the truth I had uncovered, eager to share it with others yearning for enlightenment. The spiritual war I'd come to understand was not limited to my personal wrestle. It encompassed an entire generation trapped in the snares of deception. As I wandered through villages and towns, I faced the challenge of introducing my newfound beliefs to people steeped in tradition. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Each conversation I initiated bore the weight of potential rejection, but the thought of changing lives inspired me to push forward. I would speak of love, of Jesus, of freedom found in compromise with the very truths that had rescued my own spirit. I sought out those who were also yearning for understanding, gathering souls wrestling with doubts similar to my own. Together we formed a small but tenacious community, united not just by shared beliefs, but by a collective desire for awakening. Each meeting felt electric, filled with illuminating discussions about the forces that perpetuate societal division, the manipulation by the elite, the hidden agenda that operates in silence, undermining our unity in favor of control. Every word exchanged became a stepping stone toward a greater truth, a path we walked together, illuminating one another's darkness. However, despite the warmth of this awakening, fear lingered at the periphery. Would my family accept this new version of me? Would they recognize the truth I had discovered, or condemn me for abandoning our customs? I frequently felt the tension of my past looming over me, the weight of my decisions tugging at my heart. I yearned for reconciliation with those I once held dear. The fear of severing ties anchored me in anxiety, yet also strengthened my resolve. I understood that embracing my truth might come at a high price, and the call to help others weighed heavily on my conscience. Throughout this journey, the urgency to share the truth continued to pulse within me. I met individuals who, like me, had awakened to the realities of the spiritual war we faced. We exchanged stories of our encounters with Jesus and the insights that followed. Each revelation fueled my determination to unite our voices against the deception that had shackled our societal growth. As I prepared to reach out to a broader audience, I felt adrenaline coursing through my veins, the excitement of possibility intertwined with the knowledge of potential consequences. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them head-on, armed with a truth that had the power to change lives and perhaps even shift the course of my own destiny. As I stand before you now, transformed and awakened, I want to leave you with something profound to ponder. Just like me, have you ever found yourself standing at the precipice of your own beliefs, grappling with an internal war that seems to rage beneath the surface? The divine secrets that Jesus shared with me during my dream echo much louder than just my personal journey. They call out to each of us, urging a collective awakening across a world veiled in distractions and fear. There is something greater at work, something beyond our understanding, a spiritual battle that demands engagement. The systems around us may try to bind us, but they cannot extinguish the light that yearns to break free. The question is, will you allow the truth you hold within to emerge and guide you, or will you continue to live in the shadows of doubt? I implore you to reflect on your own experiences, your own awakenings. What revelations have stirred your soul? What truths are you ready to confront? I invite you to share those reflections in the comments below. Let us spark the dialogue together, and in doing so, ignite the flames of transformation. If my story resonated with you, please subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit that notification bell. Each story we share together, like this one, is a step toward enlightenment, a reminder that we are not alone in this journey. The revelations awaiting you are far more powerful than you might imagine. Trust me when I say that the paths ahead are forever entwined. Your journey to discovery starts with this very moment. And soon, in our next video, I'll be sharing another powerful testimony, a story of awakening that promises to take us even further into the mysteries of the divine. I'm Ahmed, and I want to express my deepest gratitude for sharing this moment with me. Remember, the truth is alive, and it always finds those who are willing to awaken to it. Shall we walk this path together? Now I stand before you, not just as Ahmed the Imam, but Ahmed the Seeker, a witness of the transformative power that lies within surrendering to the truth. This journey is not merely mine. It's for anyone seeking freedom from the chains of fear and doubt. It's the calling of our time, a message that must break through the silence. And it starts now. Before we dive deeper, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love Jesus as I have come to know him, subscribe to Truth from Beyond, so you won't miss the life-altering revelations we're about to share. Let's uncover the truth together and discover the freedom that awaits. In the heart of my conservative Palestinian town, the mosque stands as a monument to our traditions, a place where reverence fills the air and the weight of our customs wraps around us like a heavy shroud. As an imam, my life has revolved around the teachings and practices shared within these walls, where faith is expected to be unwavering and doubts tread upon with caution. I had dedicated my life to serving my community and guiding others in their faith. Yet beneath the surface of my pious exterior, a storm brewed within me, a swirl of uncertainty, questions about the deeper truths of the spiritual journey I was undertaking. Despite the solemn atmosphere that enveloped the mosque, my heart carried unease that I was hesitant to voice. I often found myself pondering if our traditions confined us in ways we didn't fully comprehend. There were gatherings where whispers of doubt echoed in corners, yet I dared not speak them aloud. In this environment, faith is both a refuge and a prison. We revered our beliefs but often failed to confront the unresolved questions that lingered beneath the surface. My thoughts became darker as I grew increasingly aware of the world outside our walls, a world embroiled in conflict, suffering, and division, driven by hidden agendas we seldom acknowledged. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. I experienced a vivid dream that pulled me from the constraints of my earthly concerns and into a place of pure light. Jesus appeared before me, shining with love and understanding. This was no mere hallucination. It felt as real as the earth beneath my feet. In that moment, everything I believed was challenged, and I knew the encounter was a revelation meant for my ears alone. Jesus spoke directly to my heart, unveiling the layers of deception wrapped around society, illuminating the spiritual war that raged in silence. I felt truth pouring into me, revealing the ways we are manipulated by forces beyond our understanding, how the elite orchestrate fear and division for their gain. As he shared the realities of our world, I witnessed visions of conflict where peace was meant to reign. I saw families torn apart by the very divisions that we ignored daily, the suffering of innocence caught in the crossfire of a hidden agenda. He implored me to awaken, to see beyond the rituals and boundaries that had confined my understanding for so long. The weight of his words ignited something within me. I realized my role as an imam wasn't just to uphold the traditions, but also to challenge the very structures that could lead to further oppression. I understood then the need for a radical awakening, not just within me, but among those who filled our mosque, each grappling silently with their own uncertainties. Upon awakening, I found myself in a quandary, caught between the revelations I had received and the weight of expectations pressing down on me. The fear of alienating my community fought against the urgency I felt to share what I had learned. Would they understand? Would they openly embrace a message that called into question the very foundations of our faith? The tension in my mind deepened as I was reminded of the stakes involved in speaking out. Every moment spent disregarding these truths felt like a betrayal to the message I had received. My heart raced as I prepared for the inevitable confrontation with my community, a confrontation that could either bring enlightenment or destroy the relationships I cherished. Navigating this newfound calling would demand courage I wasn't sure I possessed. I knew I had to confront the urgency of the spiritual war, to lead those around me in an awakening that could shift the course of our existence. Yet, as I stood at the crossroads, the weight of my decision felt paralyzing. The truth Jesus imparted had shown me a glimpse of what's possible if we break free from the chains of deception. The question lingered, could I be the catalyst for that change within my community? The realization sat heavy, yet it stirred a fire within me that could no longer be ignored. As I prepared to step into the unknown, I clung to the fervent hope that my journey toward truth could illuminate the path for others searching for their own awakening in the depths of darkness. At 38, my life as an imam exemplified devotion and discipline, but beneath that facade lay a profound emptiness that gnawed at my spirit. I stood as a pillar in my community, respected by many, yet inside I felt a discord that pulsed quietly beneath my fervent prayers and rituals. Each day unfolded predictably, and the weight of my responsibilities pressed down heavily, leaving little room for the doubts that crept into my mind. I adhered strictly to religious practices, yet, ironically, the structure that was meant to provide solace only heightened my sense of isolation. I began to wonder if my unwavering obedience was a mask that hid my dissatisfaction from others, and even from myself. Despite my outward appearance of faith, I often found myself tormented by questions that seemed too dangerous to voice. Was I merely going through the motions, trapped in a routine that offered no real connection to the divine? I watched as others around me thrived in their spirituality, thriving in vibrant faith while I felt like a mere ghost, floating through the rituals without any real depth or comprehension. The monotony of my life stifled my growth. In the quiet hours of the night, when I was alone, I pondered the weight of my own existence. Was there something more that I had to uncover? Guilt gnawed at me, compelling me to take solace in deep-rooted traditions, while longing for something deeper. Then came the night that changed everything. I fell into a restless sleep, one fraught with the stirrings of my anguish. What happened next felt both surreal and life-changing. In my dream, I found myself enveloped in a warm golden light, and there stood Jesus before me, radiant and full of compassion. His presence was overwhelming yet comforting. In that moment, my heart raced as he began to reveal truths that I had long buried. "Ahmed," he said, his voice resonating deeply within me, "you're caught in a spiritual war, chained by the very traditions that confine your soul." Those words pierced through the haze of my confusion, sparking an awakening that ignited a flame in my spirit. As Jesus spoke, I was shown visions that peeled back the layers of deception that masked the truth of our lives. I witnessed the hidden agendas that perpetuate division and fear, the elite manipulating the masses while cloaked in a guise of righteousness. I saw how leaders framed narratives that kept us entangled in the web of societal chaos, exploiting the very faith that was meant to unite us. Each revelation was like a jolt of electricity, shaking me to my core. The systemic injustices, the wars, the division, it all became painfully clear. I realized that my role as an imam was not only to lead, but to challenge the narratives that kept my community shackled to ignorance. When I awoke from that dream, I was drenched in sweat, every pore in my body awakening to a reality I could no longer ignore. The experience left me altered, a stark contrast to the numbness that had clouded my life for so long. I felt enveloped by purpose and urgency, like I had been entrusted with a message too crucial to keep to myself. Yet, as I wrestled with the profound nature of this revelation, fear crept back into my heart. The journey ahead would demand courage, a willingness to confront the oppressive structures I had dutifully upheld for years. The weight of rejection from my community felt heavy on my chest, and I understood that embracing my awakening meant risking everything I'd built. But as I began to confront these realities, I felt a newfound strength stirring within me. With every realization Jesus gave me, the urgency to advocate for the truth surged stronger. I gathered the courage to voice these messages, to challenge the status quo, and to share the revelation that had changed my life. It was time to step into the light, to be vulnerable and share my transformation with those around me. The spiritual war was real, and I could no longer be a passive observer. With each pulse of my heart, I realized it was not just about my awakening. It was about rallying others to join the fight against the deception that held us captive, igniting a movement toward healing, truth, and ultimately, reconciliation with those I held dear. The journey ahead would demand everything, but the truth I carried felt far more substantial than any fears that threatened to hold me back. As I knelt in prayer, the echoes of my own words filled the mosque, yet the connection I sought felt distant, as if engulfed in an impenetrable fog. Each repetition of familiar phrases should have brought solace, but instead, they only deepened my sense of spiritual dissonance. I was Ahmed, a respected imam within my community, yet as I bowed my head, my heart wrestled with questions that simmered beneath the surface. Was I truly engaging with the divine, or was I merely following a script written long before I was born? The rigidity of my faith felt like a cage, its bars crafted from societal expectations and deeply entrenched traditions, stifling my soul. In those moments of solitude, unease crept into my thoughts. I wondered what lay beyond the dogma I had adhered to so fervently. Doubts that once seemed fleeting now invaded my quiet mind with relentless persistence. What is the essence of faith? Was my devotion merely a performance driven by fear of judgment? This disconnection from God left me feeling emotionally hollow, like a ship adrift at sea, cut off from the anchor of truth. The walls of the mosque, once a refuge, transformed into a suffocating space that echoed my internal turmoil. It became increasingly difficult to ignore the chasm that had formed between me and the faith I professed. The night everything shifted began like any other, but it soon spiraled into a journey beyond my wildest imagination. I fell into a sleep filled with restless thoughts, my spirit yearning for clarity and truth. That night, I found myself standing in a light-filled realm, a place where the boundaries of reality seemed malleable. It was there that Jesus appeared before me, not as the figure depicted in paintings, but as a radiant embodiment of love, illuminating the shadows that cloaked my doubts. Ahmed. He spoke, and his voice resonated within my very being. You are not alone in this spiritual war. Your discontent is the first step toward awakening. In that sacred moment, truths began to unfurl like petals of a flower blooming in the light. I saw the hidden agendas that manipulate our lives, how the elite orchestrate narratives that divide us, keeping us locked in ignorance and fear. I witnessed scenes of political strife and societal chaos, each player unknowingly part of a larger game designed to keep humanity shackled. The revelation struck me like a lightning bolt. The very faith and structures I revered could be exploited to sustain a system of deception. Jesus' message was clear. True faith extends beyond rituals. It's a call to action, an imperative to seek truth and foster unity amidst division. As the visions faded, I found myself wrestling with the weight of this revelation. I awoke, not to the familiar sounds of morning prayers, but to a cacophony of conflicting emotions. The clarity I had gained left me grappling with the implications for both my life and my community. How would I reconcile what I'd seen with the life I had led? Would I have the courage to challenge the rigid beliefs I'd upheld and share the truth that had been revealed to me? The stakes felt incredibly high. I feared the backlash from my community, the very people I had spent years guiding. Would they reject me as a traitor or, worse, disown me for daring to question the orthodoxy that bound us? Yet, deep down, I felt an awakening taking root within my spirit, urging me to rise above my fears. I understood that my journey was not meant to be solitary, but a collective awakening. I saw the faces of those around me, so many lost in the shadows of deception and division. If I could harness the truth I had been given, perhaps I could help illuminate the path for others. But the journey ahead promised to be fraught with danger, and I knew I was marching toward an uncertain future. Would the truth I had discovered be enough to inspire change, or would it lead to my undoing? The answers lingered on the horizon, evoking both hope and trepidation as I prepared to step into the light, determined to share my experience with those yearning for their own awakening. One fateful night, I found myself swept away into a dream that would forever alter the course of my life. The landscape around me was a dark desert, endless and desolate, the air thick with silence and shadows. As I wandered through this barren expanse, a sense of foreboding washed over me. It was more than just a dream. It felt significant, as if the universe itself was trying to convey something urgent. And then, out of the gloom, a figure emerged. It was Jesus, standing before me, radiant and awe-inspiring, his presence stirring a mix of fear and indescribable love deep within my heart. Ahmed? He called me by name, and the sound of his voice reverberated through the darkness, slicing through the silence surrounding us. In that moment, the heaviness I felt began to lift, and I was filled with a warmth that contrasted sharply against the cold emptiness of the desert. This was not just a vision. It felt like a true encounter, a divine meeting that transcended the ordinary. As Jesus took a step closer, an incredible light emanated from him, illuminating the shadows that clung to the landscape. Flashes of truth began to penetrate my consciousness, revealing the spiritual war waged within humanity, an unseen battle that ensnares souls in a web of deception. With each word he spoke, layers of my understanding peeled away. Jesus unveiled the hidden agenda behind the chaos of our world, the manipulation exerted by the elite, who perpetuate fear and division for their gain. I could see how political leaders foster conflict and strife, how they use technology and media as tools to keep the masses distracted and compliant. The revelation was staggering, and as the truth poured into me, I felt a surge of both awakening and urgency.